Thank you very much, Siobhan, and a big thank you to Siobhan for putting together this event today. So, welcome everybody. This is the fourth of our Building Success events for Women in Innovation, and we've been learning as we go along with these events, which means this event should be the best one so far. So hopefully it will be, and we'll get feedback from you to feed into future events going forward. I'm Head of Diversity and Inclusion Programmes at Innovate UK, and I've been leading the diversity and inclusion work since 2016. I wanted to say a few words about Innovate UK. So for those of you who don't know us, we're the UK's innovation agency. We're essentially here to help businesses to innovate, so to turn ideas into new products, services, processes that you can build a business around, make money out of, and help grow the economy. And also it's about contributing to society as well. We have invested since we've been around, so we were established in 2007. Since that time, we've invested over £2.5 billion into innovation programs with business. We have invested in 11,000 projects, and we have worked with over 8,500 organisations involved in those projects. And for every pound of our investment, we have shown that that brings back to the UK economy £7. We are now part of a much larger organisation called UK Research and Innovation that some of you may have heard of. That means that we sit alongside now 8 other councils within UKRI. So we sit with the research councils, the 7 research councils, and Research England. And collectively within UKRI, our combined budget annually is over £7 billion. On the diversity and inclusion side of things, that is also a very big priority for UKRI, and watch out towards the end of autumn, November time, there will be a launch of a new strategic framework for equality, diversity and inclusion for UK research and innovation as a whole that we will obviously be feeding into. So as I said, I took on this agenda back in 2016. For Innovate UK, promoting diversity and inclusion is really important because we're here to support the best innovation, the best ideas for innovation, and we need to tap into the widest possible talent pool in the UK in order to do that. And we also know that there's this growing evidence of the impact that diversity has within businesses on their financial performance, and we want businesses to do the best they can in the UK. So we are driving forward this agenda. Now, back in 2016, we had a look at our data, and we found that only 1 in 7 applications to Innovate UK for our support were led by women. If you combine that with the fact that at the time there was lots of sort of publications and reports, and actually there's ongoing reports on this, to show that in the UK there's a huge untapped economic opportunity by getting more women starting businesses, getting involved in innovation. The recent Roche review was one example of that. There was a compelling reason for us to take action, and that's what we've done through our Women in Innovation campaign and programme. So with the programme, that has involved so far a number of award programmes. So we've had 2 phases of Women in Innovation Awards, providing women with targeted and tailored financial and non-financial support. We've run some missions working with other countries, taking women-led businesses to different countries to learn how to access the markets overseas and do business there. And we run lots of events like this one here today, which is about building this community of women innovators, both in the UK and internationally. On the campaign side, we've had some real successes with a partnership with Getty Images. We have developed a Women in Innovation photography exhibition with Getty that received a huge amount of interest. We've got some photos at the back of the room here, which are photos of our Women in Innovation Award winners from the Phase 2. And we last year also did some purple plaques with schools. So we unveiled purple plaques to celebrate our women innovators that we were working with, and also to inspire the children at those schools that we were partnering up with. So since we kicked off the campaign, we have seen a significant increase in the number of women who are applying to us for our support and engaging with Innovate UK. We've seen a 70% increase in the number of applications led by women. Really pleased with the progress we have made, but there is certainly more for us to do, and we remain committed to this agenda, and we are going to be continuing targeted interventions for women in innovation going forward. So please do watch out for those. I just want to finish by saying a few things about our approach. So since I've taken this role on, I have absolutely focused on the positives, being very optimistic about this agenda. This is about celebrating women in innovation, inspiring others. It's about benefiting from the opportunities that there are for us in the UK by getting more women involved in innovation. There are lots of reasons why women are underrepresented in businesses in the UK. We can't address all of that alone as Innovate UK, but what we can do is make sure that the programmes we support are the strongest they can be, and a way of doing that is to get more diversity, and gender diversity is part of that. We want to see more women engaging in the programmes that we support to make them stronger and have bigger impacts. And working in partnership is really important, joining forces with others. So actually being here in the north, working with regional partners is part of that, so that collectively we can have more influence, we can have more impact in the work that we do, and we can sort of coordinate our different types of support for businesses like you here in the room today. So that's all I wanted to say as a quick welcome. And the next sort of formal part of the agenda is really to introduce you to the support zone. So out through the doors there are a number of different stands, which are the support zone. And there are some people, some great people here today from organisations that have got something to offer the women-led businesses here. So what I'd like to do is give each of those organisations an opportunity to provide a short pitch about what they have that could be of benefit to you. And I'm going to start with our stand. So we have a stand for Innovate UK and the KTN. And I'm not going to say too much, but at Innovate UK, we have a variety of different funding programmes for businesses that are meant to help at different stages of a business's life and also at different stages of an innovation journey. So we have grants. Many of you may have heard about some of the grants that we have. We have grants that are run through competitions that highlight priority areas, but we also have open competitions too, which are for any area of innovation. We now have loans for businesses. That's relatively new for us. If you're interested in that, come and speak to us. We have ways of allowing businesses to apply at the same time for grant funding and equity investment. We have programs that enable you to work in collaboration with academic partners and translate some academic insights, expertise into your business. And we also have a very new programme which is called Future Leaders Fellows, which again I think might be relevant to some of you here in the room today. So I'm sure we've got some funding programme that will be relevant to you. If not today, at some point in the future, come and find out more from us on the stand. And the other opportunity on the stand, our stand, is to join a new online Women in Innovation community that we have recently established. And the reason for that is that we know that from events like this here today and from the sorts of missions that we do taking businesses from the UK to other countries, there's a sort of power and energy in getting you all together, networking together, supporting each other, sharing insights and experiences. We want to do more of that through these sorts of face-to-face events, but we also want to continue to build that and support that through an online community, and that's what this new platform is about. So I would encourage you to join that platform, and you can do that here today on our stand. Okay, that's about Innovate UK and KTN stands. So next up to give us a short pitch about their stand, can I invite Angela Smith from the Enterprise Europe Network and RTC North.
Wow, thank you. You're keepers.
So just click
All right. So we are RTC North. We're an innovation management company. We are there to help you innovate, compete and grow. We do that primarily through delivery of publicly funded programmes, one of which is the Enterprise Europe Network. So what do we do? We're about helping you to innovate and internationalise. We do that through three main activities. There's a lot of crossover. We provide information on how to do business in other countries. Can be about cost implications, legal implications, can be about culture. How do I go to a business meeting in South Korea and not embarrass myself? These things do matter. A large part of what we do is we help build international collaborations. So it might be that for your particular innovation, for your business, you need to work with partners. Maybe that those partners are overseas. We can help connect you with them. Also help you to access funding and finance through UK mechanisms, help guide you through Innovate UK's various mechanisms, can be through international ones, can be through European mechanisms. Yes, despite all of the shenanigans, European opportunities are still very much there for you. Now, you may have, the eagle-eared amongst you may have heard me mention South Korea. It's a term called Enterprise Europe Network. We have an interesting definition of Europe. Everything in blue is what we call Europe. We are better at business support than we are at geography. We're in over 60 countries globally. Core of it is Europe, but we are in a lot of other countries as well. So how do we help you connect with all of these countries? Various ways. We run brokerage events. We ran one here in Manchester in May, the Eureka Global Innovation Summit, where we had representation from over the 60 countries. It enables you to work with people, to meet people face to face. We also help you in terms of online opportunities. We have what we call the Partnering Opportunities Database. Database of opportunities, people looking for partners, people requesting partners from across the network. Can be through direct contacts. There are people like me working in those 60 countries, working with their clients on the ground, and we can go, you're looking for, we know just the company for you. So we'll connect you in that way. Also have the Innovate to Succeed program. For those of you whose companies are really growing, ambitiously scaling, we can help you. This is a program that gives you up to 9 days, usually around 7 days, of in-depth tailored business support to help you reach your growth ambition. We focus on, the 9 dimensions. Aspects of your company, aspects of what you're doing that maybe you need to improve because it's kind of holding you back, and it covers all of these capabilities. Other good stuff we do. We heard Emily mention the international opportunities. We run that through the Global Business Innovation Programme. Fully funded programme, again, designed to help you make connections overseas in specific sectors. We help you, we brief you on what to do out there, we take you out there, we handhold you through the process, we support you when you get back to the UK. So it's a full programme. We support the Women in Innovation programme, not the funding aspect, sorry, we don't have money to give away, that's Innovate UK's bag, not ours, but we provide the non-funding support for that. Also do Young Innovators, we also have the Scale Up programme, so lots of good stuff going on. We have our stand out there. It's the one with the 2 banners because we're greedy and we take up space. So do come talk to us. Those are my contact details. Please feel free to take pictures. Thank you. And I've got a few cards that I do need to give away because I need some more ones. Okay, and that's me done.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you, Angela. Okay, so up next we have Luke Vanstone from STFC.
Hello, I apologise on 2 counts. Firstly, apologies from Daleth Edwards, who was meant to join us today, and also apologies for no slide. I'm not Angela Smith, she's just been on. I'm Luke, I work for STFC. I'm really pleased to be here today to support women in innovation. As we've noticed before already, diversity is critical to innovative thinking and bringing research out into the commercial world, and that's what STFC are here to do, really, to try and break down some of the barriers to creating businesses in the commercial world, particularly within science and technology. So how do we do this? Well, every startup usually asks for funding. They ask for business support in some form, and they sometimes ask for technical expertise or equipment, particularly for some of the sectors we work in, like engineering, high-speed computing, big data, biotechnology, wet chemistry, and where we think that there might be sort of opportunities to develop the thinking of people who might need expertise from, say, something like the European Space Agency or CERN, and that's where we kind of step in and try and broker that interaction and provide the funding alongside with it. it. We're part of the UK research innovation family as well. So in some ways we do similar stuff to Innovate UK, but our prof is probably a little bit earlier, and we'd hope that some of the incubation programs we support companies through might lead on to something like an Innovate UK application, and might hopefully provide some thinking to help push that forward. And that's why we're really happy to be here and brokering and helping promote the commercialisation of science and technical thinking. I'm based at the SciTech Daresbury campus, about half an hour drive from here. I'm near Warrington, about 150 companies there from a range of different sectors. And really what I'm saying here today is to come and speak to us, to see if you can make use of some of our incubation programs, maybe some of our facilities. We're just out the door on the right. I'll be here all day, and my colleague Amy will be here later as well to discuss that. But really what I'm here today to say is there's a lot of barriers to creating businesses within science and technology, and hopefully STFC we can provide funding or equipment or expertise that can help break some of those down. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you to Luke. Okay, next up we have Amina Ahmed from the Women's Organisation.
Similarly to Luke, I don't have any slides here, so I'm here to talk about the Women's Organisation. It's an organisation that's been around for 25 years, largely Merseyside-based, but I actually lead on a programme in Manchester Greater Manchester called Accelerate Labs. Essentially, the Women's Organisation helps promote women into enterprise, so that can be at pre-startup phase, growth and then high growth. It also lobbies at a policy level to help equality issues in terms of gender gap. In terms of the support that we provide, in terms of helping organisations to grow, we can help with strategy planning, we can help with access to finance, marketing, any aspect of helping an enterprise grow and scale. So that's the kind of programs that we offer. I am around networking if people want to approach me to see if there's any bespoke support that we can give. So, as I said, the Women's Organisation, I'm here to contact if you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amina. And then next up we have Mo Aldalu from Tech Nation. Oh, it's not Mo. It's somebody else who will introduce themselves.
Are we on it? Can we? Oh. Thank you. Hello, I'm not Mo, as you can possibly tell. I am Jem Henderson. I am the Entrepreneur Engagement Manager for Yorkshire for Tech Nation. So Tech Nation is the UK's national network for ambitious tech entrepreneurs. There's actually 11 of us, as you can see, so there's somebody in every region. And what we do is, well, there's all sorts really. We're currently accepting applications for our growth programs. These are three programs aimed at businesses at every level. So Rising Stars is for early stage startups who are looking for experience in pitching. So it's a pitch competition in front of investors and stakeholders. Applications for that are open now. Next up, we have the Upscale programme. This is for tech businesses that are scaling and looking to grow. It's an opportunity for peer-to-peer networking and to learn about how you can really grow your business to take it internationally. There's the Future 50 programme. This is aimed at really highlighting some of the fantastic big businesses that we have here in the UK that are, soon to be international, well-known names and hopefully our next unicorn. We also run something called the Digital Business Academy. Now, this is a fantastic opportunity for anybody who, whether you've got an idea for a tech company and you want to know, have I got what it takes to be a tech entrepreneur? There's a course on that, right through to how do you raise Series B funding. We also run the visa scheme for exceptional talent. So, yeah, we're on a stand outside. You can't miss me. I have blue hair. So if you want to come and chat to us about any of that or anything else, feel free. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And last up but not least, we have Nicola Torkington from Flourish Together.
just arrow along. Brilliant. So yes, Michaela Torkington, I'm one of the co-founding directors of Flourish. I thought I'd tell you a bit about who we support, some of our impact to date and what we do. So in terms of who we are, we basically are trying to support all sorts of women to create the change they see needed in communities. They might not see themselves as tech entrepreneurs just yet. They might not see themselves as innovators or leaders, but we will get down there and find them and support them to see that they are. In terms of who's who, I just wanted to sort of highlight, we're a women-led organisation. We work across the Northwest in the main, based here in Manchester. We've just taken our first bloke onto the board, a lovely chap called Ahmed, and the rest of us are a diverse group of women who specialise really in social enterprise and innovation. We're very sort of strong in our cross-sector partnerships, corporate social responsibility work. Although we do work in growth, and we create our own seed fund to create investment to invest in women, we're really there getting our hands dirty to help create the pipeline that you're all looking for, because nobody walks into business thinking, I'm ready to grow from day one. It usually takes a good couple of years to get them to that point. So in order to find the cash and the resources to help people at that early stage, we've developed a pay it forward consultancy model. So the grey bits around the edges are all the things that we do. The networks, the crowdsourcing, the PR and profile are the kind of added benefits that our network brings. And we've got over 700 women change makers that we support to help all of this to happen. And the bit in the middle is our kind of free peer learning and mentoring network that we run to help anybody access support at that early stage of getting started. We were a little bit fed up with the inconsistency that sometimes happens when the agencies and funding kind of wax and wane based on policy, based on money that's around. So we've really tried to create a resilient model that means that we can do anything with anyone at any time. Some of the examples of our sort of clients and supporters are kind of up here, just to highlight, you know, we work nationally, we work locally, we work with the voluntary community as well as the public sector. And we've got a number of our social businesses now buying us in for all sorts of support. Quick pretty picture of some of the people we've supported. So every year we run an annual crowdfund campaign to create a seed fund to invest in women. About 75% of the people who invest in that are women. So we're just trying to change perceptions that, you know, women do invest, women will support another, and women do, you know, have the potential to get ahead. As I say, we've got a relatively large network. We run all sorts of mentoring relationships and programs. This sounding board mentorathon that we run every year is almost the opposite of a pitching competition. We've tried to sort of flip things on their head a little bit. And to date, we've invested seed funding in 51 women change makers. And some of them are in the room, actually, which is good to see. So if you'd like to come and talk to us about any of that, you're very welcome. I'm not going to expect you to read all of this, but I've put it up there in case people are interested in kind of what small organisations can actually achieve, because we create some quite rapid change with the people we work with. So I just draw your attention to the little blue box where, you know, just under half of the women that we've supported have created freelance roles, which then helps them sort of build their resilience to be able to then set up companies and social enterprises. Just under a fifth have created full-time roles within the first year of setting up. Lots of them create volunteering opportunities to help other people get ahead, and that kind of work experience foot in to help people start and think about where their ideas could take them. So I won't say an awful lot more. I was just going to show you a bunch of images there. I think a picture tells 1,000 words, as they say, and a lot of the women we support tend to be in the fields of health and well-being, food and sustainability, creative and digital, education, criminal justice, a range. So if you'd like to come and talk to me later about any of this sort of stuff, whether you're an agency, whether you're starting up, whether you're scaling up, we support people in many ways, from business planning, strategic support, through to finding your mentors and developing programs that can help women create the change they see needed. So thanks for listening.
Wow, fantastic. I hope you agree that there are lots of opportunities there that you've just heard about. So please do take the opportunity to go and meet with people on the stands in the support zone. It's all out there, very close together. So you'll be able to find the people that were standing up here doing those pitches later on. And I look forward to meeting lots of you on the Innovate UK stand and hearing about your businesses and how we might be able to support you going forward. So the next part of the agenda is a bit of a discussion, and it's about celebration. So I said very much the focus that we have had is about celebrating women in innovation. So this session is celebrating women in the Northwest, and it's going to be led by Simone Roche, who is the CEO and founder of Northern Power Women. And Simone is going to be speaking with Sam White, who is the CEO of Pukka Insure. So I'm going to introduce Simone, and I'll allow Simone to introduce Sam later. Simone started her career in the male-dominated military and then held roles at Aintree Racecourse, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the Arena Convention Centre Liverpool and the Olympics. It wasn't until she became the director for a campaign supporting women in the hospitality, leisure, travel and tourism industry, and she was asked to be a champion for the Government Equalities Office that gender equality grew to be her passion. When the International Festival for Business was held in Liverpool in 2014, Simone campaigned to include businesses' role in promoting gender equality and developing talent, and held a sell-out event focused on the role women played in driving the economy. Simone saw the need and opportunity to focus on gender balance in the Northern Powerhouse region, and in 2015, Simone launched the Northern Power Women campaign to accelerate gender diversity from the north of England. Simone was awarded an MBE in the 2018 Queen's Birthday Honours for services to gender equality in the north of England, and we are delighted to have Simone here today and to be having this session with Sam, talking about celebrating women in the Northwest. So, can I invite Simone and Sam up on stage? And they've been talking about creating mischief, so we'll see what sort of mischief they create. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Emily. Yes, we did have a pre-breakfast meeting, wasn't it? We caused
some mischief.
We did cause some mischief, actually, in the hotel this morning. Thank you so much, Emily. It's great to be here. As you say, I set Northern Power Women up 4 years ago to really celebrate, recognise and showcase the wealth and raft of amazing kick-ass role models that we have in the north of England. And I think, my view has always been there cannot be this thriving powerhouse of regions. If the Northern Powerhouse would be a country, it would be the 6th largest in Europe. So if we are to overlook female talent and female entrepreneurship, then we would be mad. So one of the fantastic things I've been able to do over the last 4.5 years is to storytell about some of these brilliant individuals. And I do think I have the best role in the world because every day I get to converse, to chat, create mischief, a little bit of mayhem with amazing role models. Every one of you in this room is a role model, whether you're setting your own business up, whether you're on that journey, no matter where you are, you've all probably had different experiences, and I have that responsibility and that joy to be able to share and celebrate some of these stories. So today I want this to be an interactive conversation. When Emily and when we spoke sort of probably a few weeks ago about this, I thought actually it'd be really good to have an example and have a conversation about what kind of real examples look like, and hopefully give some top tips learning. So please feel free as we go through this session, if you've got any questions or something that Sam says that sparks some enthusiasm or then please do, then just pop your hand up and we'll join in the conversation. But I'm delighted to welcome Sam. So I met Sam many years ago in the Midlands, actually. You were speaking at an event there, and I thought, gosh, it was kind of talk after talk, and I thought, and then this woman in leather and big heels came
same
on.
Jacket.
Yeah, and I thought, she's my height, but look, she looks massive on that stage, and just had such an impact, and told me about the journey, about the highs, the lows, the ups and downs, and I just love the honesty of it. And then I was delighted a couple of years later when you were nominated on 2 years in a row, weren't you, for Entrepreneur of the Year? And it was a real arm wrestle amongst the judges and stuff, but they're so bowled over by your story. You set your business up at 24. You are multi-award winning. You are multi-business running, owning, and multiple countries now, just having opened in Australia. And I'd like sort of during this conversation of sort of for you to take us through. So 24 years old in the insurance industry. Why?
I know. Everybody always says why insurance, and I guess I haven't really got a valid excuse for that, to be fair, other than the fact that I got my first proper job working in a claims business, which was handling motor insurance claims. And to be fair, working for other people didn't really work for me. And that's never really changed. It's possibly why I haven't got private equity in the business. But I struggled, I think, with being told what to do by other people. And I think that's probably a mindset of most entrepreneurs, male, female, and you know, you want to steer your own ship. You want to kind of take your own direction, much like you.
Steer your own ship, we like that.
Yeah.
Can't get the bottle lid off.
Do you want me to help?
No, it's okay. I'm an independent woman. I'm not thirsty.
I just told it.
You just
balancing
you
it.
distract everyone.
No.
You distract everyone. I failed.
So I left that business. I did have plans to go travelling around the world. Hey, there you go. You see, that's resolved the problem. She did loosen it. I saw that. Thank you.
This is why we all need to help each other, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, access to water is really critical. So I left that business, and I think we talked about this. I had a series of life-changing events at around about the same time. So I broke my leg having a water fight at 3 o'clock in the morning with some male friends, which was probably ill-advised. Fell asleep on the couch with a bag of frozen peas on my leg, and then realised in the morning that it was probably worse than I thought it was. And I was kind of trapped on my sister's couch for that period of time, which was actually, it was one of those moments in life that was a real positive. Because there's not a lot you can do when you're trapped on a couch other than imagine what your future might be like. It was like enforced meditation, to be fair. And I ended up, I'm on this couch, and then I had a couple of other unfortunate incidences. I split up with my boyfriend, my mum died, and I just had this real sort of epiphany that actually I don't want my life to go in a certain direction. So I left, thought I might go travelling around the world, and instead ended up setting up a business from my sister's conservatory with a phone and a desk. And I thought I'll just see what happens and see if I can take it from there.
And what was your motivation? You know, you had the bag of peas, and you had, you know, you've had this great loss. But what sort of, and other than not wanting to work, you know, I probably have many people in the room
don't want to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary though, right?
Yeah. Well, so I would find it more scary, I think, now to put my fate in somebody else's hands. And it's always an interesting conversation that I have with people when they say, you know, aren't you frightened? And we've got 270 staff now, so that's arguably a lot of responsibility, and I do take that responsibility very seriously. But I trust myself. I back me, you know, and I think that is, when I've gone to a lot of these female-led events, that's the thing that women need the most support on. And I think it's because they aren't encouraged in the same way as children and kind of growing up. They're not encouraged to have faith in themselves. They're encouraged to rely probably on others more than men are. And I think that it's really empowering when you kind of get to that point and you're like, yeah, no, I can do this. But I think my main driver was freedom. At the initial instance, it was just the freedom to build something for myself. And then it kind of took on from there. I ended up, my first member of staff was my best friend, who I've been friends with since I was 4. And she walked into the conservatory, and she's a bit like you, she's a bit more organised than I am. And she walked into the conservatory, and I'd been selling and hustling and making a bit of money to make this business work. And there was literally invoices all over the table. The checkbook for the business was on the table, and I'd paid for a Chinese takeaway. And Eleanor saw this and was absolutely horrified. She looked at it, she was like, is that a Chinese takeaway? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure we can claim it back. She was like, no, you can't. So I said, can you help? And she left her pretty secure job to come and join me. She was working at the AA, and she sorted all the paperwork out and kind of organised me. And then I carried on doing what I enjoyed, which was doing the deals and creating the business opportunities. And it kind of went from there. And I think once you start to build up your tribe, it does become more about, so for me, I wanted personal freedom, but then it became about this tribe that we'd got together, and how do we build something amongst ourselves that's going to kind of go somewhere.
And do you think that 270 people that you're responsible for now.
Yeah.
And, you know, have you had any sort of interesting learnings? So employing your best friend, that's quite scary. Are you still friends?
We are, yeah.
Wow.
And my sister ended up marrying her brother, so now she's really stuck with us.
Nepotism, see,
Yeah, completely stuck with us.
And what would you say, you know, you've built this on the culture of your values. Do you think that still stays inherent within the business?
Yeah, and more so now, actually, because I never got funding for the business. It's something that we talked about a lot and that I have a lot of frustration about. And I do believe, and I'm not one to say that life isn't fair, because we all know that life isn't fair and it's just the way that it is. But I think observing the fact that it is more difficult for women to get funding, I mean, 10 pence of every pound spent on entrepreneurs is spent on women. And, you know, when you look at the statistics of how successful female-run founded businesses are, it's not a logical argument that they can make. I don't mind bias if there's a business case behind it, but that there isn't a business case behind it. So not having the funding meant that we had to hustle a lot in the early years. And actually now that the business is more stable and more successful, I'm actually able to engage in other things that are really important to me. So we've committed to giving 10% of our profits back to all the staff and 10% to charity. And we have time bank days with the staff, and we make that part of the workplace that we have. Now, I couldn't have done that when we first started up, because there isn't that flexibility to be able to do anything other than just survive. So I think, you know, for me now, I'm in a stage with the business where I really feel I can explore more of my values as opposed to less.
And I think that is sort of just some of the things you've said there. It's picking on two things. Going back to your friends sort of picking you up and talking about your Chinese takeaway. How do you learn those rules of the game? Because it's great today to hear the pitches that we've just had this morning, and they'll continue on. I would urge everybody to go ask for help.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely, yeah.
But, you know, how did you learn the rules of the game? How did you learn that actually Chinese takeaway did not count?
Was
or
not
did
good.
you find a way?
Yeah. I may have some Chinese takeaways on my expense ratio. I've learned through failing, basically, and you know, I think again that's probably something that women struggle more with than men. I think that they don't like to fail, and so, you know, that whole journey in the initial instance, which is that you try something, it doesn't work, and then you modify it and you go back. That's something that you just have to do, and it's okay. It's like some of the best business ideas that I've had it didn't really resemble what I set out to do in the first instance. It didn't quite turn out in the way that I thought it was going to turn out, but it turned into something pretty good, and that's what we move forward with. So I think learning to fail is important. I think mentors are really important. I've been really lucky to have a good network of friends that also happen to be business owners that are happy for me to bounce stuff past them and have conversations. I found the bank completely useless, and I told you the story about when I first went into the bank to ask for a business loan. And I'd had a pretty successful job. So the job before I broke my leg, I was actually doing all right.
What were you doing?
I started off doing, so I went to university, did a psychology degree, left, got a job, and I started off doing telesales for this claims business. And then I just got promoted and promoted and promoted, and I ended up as the national accounts manager at 22. So I was on 50 grand a year, company car, was also struggling with massive panic attacks and was hugely overweight and smoking like a chimney, which was another kind of thing that I had to reconcile. But it was a good job. And I had a personal overdraft that was about £2,000-3,000, and I didn't really use it very often, but I had it, and it was a safety net. And I went to the bank to see if they would lend me some money for this startup business. And I sat down with this guy who was probably the most patronising man I've ever met, and I've met a few. You know,
we talked about a few.
Yeah, we talked about a few, and that's not gender specific. I mean, being patronising doesn't, you know, sit in a particular gender. But this particular guy was horrendous, and he decided to explain in painstaking detail the concept of gearing to me. So he's like, the thing is, Samantha, if you want to borrow £40,000 from me, I will need to see that you have £40,000 somewhere else so I can leverage this £40,000 to lend you the £40,000. And at 24, I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why would I borrow £40,000 from you when actually, if I've got the 40,000, I don't get it. And he promptly removed my personal overdraft as well. And he was like, and now that you're working for yourself, you clearly won't need this facility, so I'm going to take it away. So I was like, yeah.
How did that work?
I came in here for a bit of support. I've left with less money than I had to start with. And, I think that probably kind of coloured my view of the investment community quite considerably. So it might be why I've never had funding in the business.
So you've never gone down that route at all?
No, so we got a little bit of investment probably 2 years ago when I launched the insurance business, because there was a lot of capital that we required for that. But it was Maven, who was a local Northwest, and it was based on the fact that we were going to employ people in the North. The way that they do their sort of gearing ratio, I'm not sure that they would have done the same deal for us. And we have. I mean, we went from, in that 3-year period, we went from 120 staff to 270. So we are employing people in the Northwest. So it was money well spent, I always say. and we haven't missed a payment.
And we talked about the F word, funding, but we've also talked about failing.
Yes.
What was one of your highlight fails?
Yeah, I've had quite a few, to be fair. I did nearly lose all of the businesses in 2013. So
wow, not so long ago.
No, it wasn't. I'd got the business up to, at that point, I'd got the business up to 300 staff. We were turning over 18 million. We had a really healthy EBITDA. And then there was a regulatory change around the claims industry, which meant that I lost 60% of my revenue lines in a 4-week period. That was very painful. I would not advise it to anybody. But I think that the key thing is there's always a way. And it was tough, and I had to make redundancies. So we took the 300 people down to 100 staff. I had to reform the business model. I had to work out different opportunities that we would have, and it was very close call for a period of time. But it's all part of the learning experience. Most entrepreneurs will go through that. We were fortunate that we didn't go bust. And I think I told you, there were a number of people that said to me at the time, business associates that I had, that said, why don't you just, liquidate, start again. You won't then have all of that cost that you've got to work through. But I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to kind of not do the right thing in terms of the people that had worked for me for a period of time, and also the business associates we had. So we paid every invoice that was due, and we paid out the redundancy payment for the people. And interestingly, some of them have come back to work for me again now that we've kind of stabilised and are back on the way up. And I think people remember that stuff.
Yeah. But that's all part of that. You've set this up with a set of vision and values right from the start, and your own set of principles. Do you think there's a difference? And again, it's not wanting to always go into that stereotype, but do you think there's a difference between the way a woman startup and a male startup?
Well, you can absolutely see it in the statistic, and even this event today. What's the innovative event talking about? It's talking about sort of social enterprise. It's talking about how do you give back. When I do business with women, it tends to be they prefer to have a common goal. So I find when I'm doing business with guys, and I've got male business associates and female business associates, that men like to win generally, and so there's a competitive edge, and that's okay. That I have no problem with that. That's a driver. It creates business. It does its thing. But I find women like to collaborate and feel like they're part of something bigger. So when you get a group of women together, the focus isn't just how do I make this profit margin. It is how do I actually create a business that's sustainable. They won't take unnecessary risks if they think that the casualty will be human. That's my experience of the difference from a gender perspective.
And how many people, show of hands in the room, how many are running your own business?
Wowzers, that's very encouraging.
Yeah. And how many are you around the F word, the funding? Who has achieved funding? That was a
arm went down quickly.
Okay,
yeah.
so it needs to be asked. How many are looking for funding, or would look if they knew a little bit more and weren't as scared by Yeah, that's me too, probably as well. I think. Yeah. What's your advice? I know you've not gone down this funding route, but again,
so I am.
How do we make it easy?
Yes. So I got so frustrated with it, I actually decided to set up my own business around this whole area because
of course you did.
But it's a thing, and I think one of the things that I find really frustrating, I don't know if anybody else here that's looked for funding has, is that it's so opaque. Like, they don't sit down with you and give you options. And I had this conversation with a guy that came in to see me the other day, because I'm growing and scaling the business. There are a number of avenues I could take it down. Some of that will depend on funding. What I want from them is for them to say, this is the art of the possible. With your business as it's structured at the moment, this is what you could do. You could get debt funding in, and you could do it on a capital repayment, and this is how much it would cost you, and this is what you'd have to generate. Or you could do an equity deal. These are the sorts of options that are available on an equity basis. What they do, however, is come in and immediately launch into, right, you now need to give me all of your numbers and all of your bank statements and all of your information. You tell me exactly what you want and where you're going to put it. And, you know, I likened it, we had this conversation, I likened it to, if you walk into a car showroom and you want to look at some cars, they don't stop you at the door and say, can I have all your bank statements now, please? They let you look at the cars first to make a decision as to which one you might want, right? And I just think that the whole funding game is badly structured. I went on a program to help kind of conceptualize this in terms of, I get that some of it's probably me, and I probably am a little bit bullish, and I probably don't play the game quite as much as I should do. But nevertheless, I think that the whole process could be a lot easier, and explaining what the rules of that game are in terms of how you present is one of them. But I do think there should be different types of funders. I don't think it all should be coming from the fact that we make all the compromise to fit in with their program and system, because their program and system doesn't work. Like, if you look at private equity funding, they expect 7 of the 10 businesses to fail, and that they're going to leverage the hell out of the 3 that are successful. How is that a sustainable, sensible business model? Like, nobody can explain to me, and I've asked them, like, explain the science behind it. What information are you working with to make the decision on whether you invest in this business or not? Because I can't see any science. And they talk around euphemisms, it's the strength of the team and it's this and that. And it can't be. The IPPR report shows that you look at the north, you look at how many fastest growing businesses are actually in the north. There's probably proportionately more, in fact, I think there is, than there is in London. But London gets twice the amount of funding. So how does that match up?
So how do we shift that? How do we fix that? Can you fix that over lunch?
Yeah, I think we can probably fix that over lunch, yeah. I mean, there needs to be different funders in the market. There definitely needs to be more female-led founders, funding firms, because I think that they'll see things from a slightly different perspective. But I think we all need to be challenging the process as well.
And what about alternative funding, like crowdfunding, crowdsourcing? I think depending on the type of business, you've seen like your Brewdog, sort of came from that whole crowdfunding, crowdsourcing model.
I mean, so I know a number of businesses that have been successful with that, and I love it as a concept. And if you're a consumer-facing brand, to raise money in that way is actually great PR for a startup of a business. So I'm kind of completely on board with it, but that in itself it's still an art, and it's still a game that they know. A lot of these businesses do have quite a significant PR machine behind them before they go out on a crowdfunding basis. And actually, if you look at how I set my business up, it was just literally kind of, all right, let's do some work and create some revenue and take it to the next step. And I think that's a different type of business will be the right kind of business for crowdfunding.
For the room, what advice would you give your 24-year-old self again if that was right now?
Well, don't get drunk and have a water fight.
Absolutely, yeah.
Still got the metal in my leg. It's not a good idea. I would say I I should have borrowed money earlier, ironically enough. I think I could have done...
What stopped you?
That bank manager. Yeah, I mean, that definitely put me off. I did try on a number of occasions, but always just felt like it wasn't happening. So I think borrowing money earlier, the right kind of money, and not, you know, not getting caught up in the wrong kind of money as well. And I think also probably trusting myself sooner. I got to certain points where I felt more confident to take bigger steps. And now I'm kind of up for anything, and hence the Australian business and kind of going down that road. So if I could have got to that level of confidence sooner, I think it would have been better.
And that might seem like a million miles. How on earth do you get from 24-year-old with your bag of peas, having, you know, suffered some quite, you know, breaks and emotional loss, etc. How do you get to setting your business up in Australia? How did that happen?
So I think it comes down to, and I always say, the biggest factor for entrepreneurial success that I see is tenacity. It absolutely is. And you know, for me, I just keep getting up off the mat. So, okay, that didn't work. What do? I don't care about rejection. I don't care if somebody says no. It's just, you know, another way to come around the other angle to get a yes. And I think it is just one day at a time. And people think that they can sit and map out their whole business plan. And I'm not a big fan of really extensive business plans and putting a 5-year business plan together, because my experience of the universe is that it's chaos and people are chaotic. And so if you have a really fixed mindset that says, this is the way that I'm going to make this business work, you are just going to be on hiding to nothing, because the first time that you engage in the real world, it will give you a slap round the face and wash some water in your face, and you'll be like, oh, that wasn't quite what I expected. So I think resilience, absolutely, but the ability to keep that open mind and work out the best outcome now. So what can I do right now that's going to make a positive impact? That's all you can do. And then one day becomes 2 days, becomes a week, and the next thing you know, you find yourself on a plane to Sydney trying to persuade a media company to invest in an insurance business.
So any questions for Sam in the room? Oh, hello, yes. Just wait a second, there's a microphone coming your way.
My question is, you went from a 50k job to starting your own business. How do you find that transition? Like, how did you sustain yourself without income?
It's a good question. And there's lots of different types of business, and this is why I think you've got to kind of carefully work out whether funding is right for you. I decided to set up a business where I could realise income immediately. So the first thing I did was sell other people's products for them. So I was charging them for appointments that I made. So that was an instant revenue stream in that I could balance out. But also, I did it with my sister. So I sold my house, she sold hers. We ended up moving out of the conservatory into a big old semi-detached house, and we turned the basements into offices, which were a disaster for a period of time because we all smoked like a chimney and there was no windows in there. So from a health and safety perspective, not advised. But yeah, we did it as a family, and we did have to make compromises, and I did notice that I couldn't go out quite so much as I did before, but the upside of that is that I had a quality of life that was better, and I knew that it would take a bit of time to get back up to that.
Yes, just 1 second. Oh, very considerately on the same side there as well.
Hi, it's fantastic to listen to you. And they always say don't work with friends and family.
I was thinking that.
I wanted to say that because I worked with a really good friend of mine and we're no longer good friends, which is very sad. And a long story, it's not worth going into. But do you think that's luck, or do you think you just happen to have really great friends?
Well, Eleanor is incredible and very patient. So I did actually a post on LinkedIn about this because my dad always said to me, you can be friendly with people that work for you, but not friends. I disagree. So I think all relationships have the propensity to break down. it's just life, right? So you might have fallen out with her anyway because she might be a difficult human that would have showed herself in different
He was
ways.
actually a guy, and I didn't fall out with him, he fell out with me, which was a bit of a shame, really.
Does that mean you're the difficult human?
But no, I think I wanted to split the company because it wasn't working as a joint affair. And he took it too personally. And I think in business, I'm afraid business is business.
Yeah, totally.
And I tried to savour our relationship, and he just wasn't having any of it. So he was a typical bloke, chuck his toys out of the pram. I did the olive branch thing. He didn't want it, so I think, well, more fool him, really.
It sounds like you're best
Sounded
rid of him.
better than him anyway now.
Yeah, well, of course, of course. And he probably was upset that now he's going to have to do the work.
Absolutely.
But, you know, in terms of... Yeah, absolutely. In terms of friendships, I genuinely believe that the right people conduct themselves in the right way, regardless of whether you do business with them or you don't. And I've never ended up in a situation where I felt compromised in that way, because my style of business is to try and do the right thing. So on that basis, you know, my friendships have survived, but it's a fair point.
I did the right thing for my family and my
Absolutely.
circumstances. Unfortunately, he didn't agree with that. It was just a difference of opinion. Really.
Absolutely, and you know, it's okay not to want to. I've had a number of business relationships that we've chosen not to carry on doing business together, but that's okay. I've had business relationships. I've got a broker that used to do a deal with me, stay with me for 2 years, and then disappear to somebody else because they offered him more money, and then come back. And I was like, you're like a really bad boyfriend. Like you keep breaking up with me and coming back. And
I think he's turned into a grumpy old man. He's 10 years older than me, and I think it's the age thing.
That could be it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I think, are we out of time? Oh, one more question. Oh, hello. Oh, right. I've got two, so we'll do you at once. So can we have a microphone here as well? So if you say your question, we'll come to you for your question, and then Sam will have to remember.
I'll answer it 30 seconds for both.
You'll have to multitask.
Okay, just a quick one. So I've started out recently setting up my own business as a freelance digital marketer. And I think the biggest thing that I struggle with so far is like self-confidence, and actually going to client meetings and having the self-confidence to say what I think and not, you know, worry about how I'm being perceived. I just wondered what your tips were on actually building self-confidence in yourself.
Okay, self-confidence tips and...
Mine is a general one for both of you, really. Just curious, so in Manchester there are a couple of the incubators and some of the funding that is on offer, especially for tech entrepreneurs, is associated with people, a couple of male people who are actually quite problematic and quite sexist.
Yep.
And
Should we have them killed?
I mean, if you would, that would be lovely. I chatted to a couple of women, like maybe 6-7 months ago, and one of them was saying to me, we're not really sure whether we want to take funding from this organisation because it's associated with this man, and it's, you know, are we being self-indulgent, or does it really matter? Like, is that what, you know?
You're saying, should you care where you get the money from?
Yeah, essentially.
I think it would be lovely if we had. Sorry, I'm like I now.
Your way.
It'd be lovely if we had the luxury of being able to make those judgments. Unfortunately, the way that the world is geared at the moment, I think you do have to make compromises around that stuff, and then you can build a business that brings good. Is my view. I have to engage sometimes. I'm in the insurance sector. It's dry. I have to engage with people that I might not have the same views, mindsets, etc. But my path is to build something that I think is the right thing. If I have to engage with those people along the way,
I've tried to ignore the sirens, if I'm honest, because sometimes, you know, I think when I am very, you know, it's a very small micro business, so I do try it and avoid that. If I can look at an alternate way, then I will. But then I think that is just because I'm also very small. But equally, at some point in time, I know I've made some decisions and I've thought, I say go with your gut.
Yeah.
It's almost maybe play the game a bit.
Your gut can serve you really well, I think. So I think go with your gut.
And all else fails, getting killed. The confidence issue, I totally get. The thing, I used to have panic attacks. So panic attacks are the worst thing in the world when you think people are watching you and they might judge you. And then I suddenly realised everybody feels the same. So even that swaggery, loud guy in the room is scared of what you think of him. And that really flipped the script for me to go, actually, my opinion is just as valid, if not more so. And the fear that I'm feeling is shared by them. So a lot of the time when people seem that they're not quite engaging with you or that they're judging what you're saying, it's nothing to do with you. It's some thought process that they're having or their own fear or they're processing. So I let it wash over me.
I say use the room. You've got an amazing room full of experts, friends, collaborators. There'll be 10 people in this room all thinking, that's me too. You know, ask for help. You know, you talked about a tribe. Build a tribe around you. It may not be that people are all doing the same in the same sector or industry or whatever, but you know what, just having that conversation with like-minded people who are on different parts of the journey, ask for help. People are there, they've been it, they've done it, and you can swap and share notes. So don't leave today unless you've built some tribe around you as well, because that's what people want. So listen, thank you for your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. Sam has just launched a podcast as well, which 100% creates some fantastic conversations. So you can subscribe to the podcast, which is called
Human Business.
There you go. It has all manner of tips on self-confidence and finding a hitman. So if you need any of that information,
particularly the hitman.
And thank you all so much, and thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Seats, and I hope that you've had some useful discussions over the coffee break. Okay, so we're now going to kick off the next session, which is actually a presentation by Rick over here. Rick Holland is one of our regional managers at Innovate UK. So we have a team of people who are situated in each of the regions, and really they are our eyes and ears, I guess, for what's going on in the region and helping really to join up what we're doing in terms of national innovation policy and programmes with what's happening in the regions. And Rick is going to talk to you about innovation and its importance in this region. So I invite you up to do your bit, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily, and it's great to be here and joining you today on what looks to be an absolutely fantastic day. I apologise I'm not here for the full day, but I hope to give you some inspiration now as to the importance of what you're doing today and what comes next. So I'll start with a confession. I am not a business person. I was, however, an engineer, and in fact, I'm still chartered as an engineer. About 13 years ago, when I joined an engineering design consultancy here in Manchester, one of the things that I noticed straight away as a young engineer was that all of my colleagues were striving for improvement. And in particular, what I noticed that many of my colleagues were seeking to improve their skills, such that their skills were at least as good, say, as their line managers. And as a young engineer, I thought, that's going to take me a long time. And ultimately, I'm going to be the same as what is there today. But I've got different skills, and I was coming in actually thinking, maybe there's different ways to use my skills. And there was a couple of things I started on, which was, first of all, creating little design tools using Excel. Little bits of software that I had some capability in doing from my university days. That software was enabling me to do, let's say, a day's worth of engineering in about a couple of hours. Not everybody liked that. But the truth was, the competition was already doing it. And in actual fact, I just happened to be the first person in our office who had the capability of doing that improvement to make us more productive as an office. In the years since, using digital design has just become the norm within the construction sector, and what I was doing there would no longer be considered a significant improvement. The other aspect of what I was doing was continually looking at the horizon at what other technologies were coming into the market that we could be using within our building designs to make the building itself better. Better for the client, better for the occupants, making spaces like this delightful spaces for us to be in today. And that got to the stage, there was one project where we were actually specifying in an office LED lighting right across the floor plate on an office block. And we were specifying LED lamps that you couldn't actually buy at that time. So the client had to have the confidence in us that we understood the direction of travel of technology well enough that we could predict where the LED lamps would be at the time at which the building was being built. If I fast forward then to 2012, that's when I joined Innovate UK. And one of the many things I've learned since was actually those improvements that I was working on as an engineer, they are textbook examples of innovation. So I was innovating in terms of how we as a business performed using those digital tools to make us more productive. And I was innovating in terms of the products that we were putting into buildings to make the buildings themselves better for people. I also learned that the Treasury and the government would be supportive of what I was doing as well, because that innovation I was working on was better for the economy, was better for the society of the UK as well. So I want to give you a little bit of a flavour as to some of the evidence behind why innovation is so crucial to the economy of this region, and why it's so important what you're doing in your businesses. And I'll start with this one that shows from a government commissioned study just a few years ago that highly innovative firms, on average, grow faster than less innovative firms. By growth, we mean, of course, more turnover, more profits, more jobs. Great for the region if your business can be on that path. And a little detail about this was, of course, growth happens often in fits and starts, and there might even be periods of retraction before the next phase of growth. So this study looked long-term, back in time, and saw where a business was taking innovation seriously, committing to it, almost putting innovation into the DNA as to how the business operated. They could see over the years that this trend started to emerge where growth was faster than the businesses who were not prioritizing innovation the same way. Secondly, this study looked at the relationship between innovation and exports. Now, of course, exports themselves are good for growth, to increase sales, but what this study has concluded was that the mindset of an innovator means that whenever they are exporting, whenever they are exposing themselves to the wider market and actually the competition that exists in overseas markets, it meant that they were able to come back and innovate better, so that then when they exported, they were going to be more successful at it. So there's this positive reinforcement happening between being an exporter and being an innovator. As we look forward in the years ahead for the UK, you will understand how important it is for more businesses in the UK to be tapping into that virtuous circle. Anyone who's familiar with economics in the room, I'm sure there's many, will understand the importance of this word productivity. It's the word that drives so much of policy and so much of what the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Treasury do. So leading up to the financial crisis, there was this analysis as to how innovation, the new products, the new services, the new way of doing things better, had accounted for over half of the growth of the UK's productivity during those years. But perhaps productivity is a bit sort of ethereal, a bit sort of difficult for you to grasp as a business as to why you would want to put that near the top of your board agenda. So I'll give you this one instead. Bowhurst, who are a data analytics company on the business community of the UK, looked at the difference between the value of a business who was innovative, and the proxy for that was that they had received funding from Innovate UK, versus the value of businesses who had not received funding from Innovate UK. And what you can see here, the difference between the top line, 9.1, and the bottom line, 7, was that there was a significant uplift in the value of companies who had received the backing of Innovate UK on the basis of the quality of innovation that that business was doing. Now, my next slide, unfortunately, I don't have any data for this one, but I am absolutely certain that it's true. I think innovators are more likely to be businesses with a clear sense of purpose and also looking to make the world a better place. But of course, none of these benefits, these societal benefits, are guaranteed. And in fact, what's going to make the difference between being more likely or actually achieving these benefits is your leadership, your teams, and your commitment to innovation for the long term. And perhaps you are equal to the 130 companies here in the Northwest that Innovate UK awarded funding to just over the last 12 months, to the tune of close to £40 million. So we've been backing these businesses here in this region over the last year and a little bit. Perhaps some of you are better than these 130 companies. In fact, perhaps after today and all of the additional capabilities you have as a consequence of today, perhaps you don't require our funding. Perhaps you're actually ready to be a successful business yourselves. So I'm not really here to try and convince you to apply to Innovate UK for funding. Instead, what I'm here trying to do is convince you that the success of your business can be built off the back of your commitment to innovation, and that is so important to this region because of all those economic, all those societal benefits from that. It'll be your businesses that create the higher value jobs for the Northwest. You'll be giving career paths for people so that they can advance in their careers here without having to go elsewhere. And I think I'm right in saying that it was Lord Kitchener himself who said, "The North needs you to succeed." More than that, in fact, the UK needs you to succeed, because the nation needs everyone with a good idea for doing things differently, for doing things better, to be able to attract the investment required to commercialize your ideas and to make sure that those societal and economic benefits that I've talked about can be realized by all of us. So thank you very much for listening to me. What I mean, hopefully do is instilling in you a confidence that through innovation, you'll not only do great things for your business, but also do great things for this region. And I'm delighted now to be able to open up the next part of the agenda as well, which is the panel session. And I'll start by inviting the chair to the floor. And it gives me great pleasure to invite Sue Dunkerton, OBE, to come up. Sue is the interim chief executive and a director at the Knowledge Transfer Network. I must let you know that she received her OBE in recognition for her contribution to the field of healthy engineering. And as you'd expect, she's passionate about the Women in Innovation programme, and she's been an ambassador for this programme from the very start. So please welcome Sue to the stage.
Don't feel as though I should sit down just yet, so maybe I'll do that in a second. Thanks very much, Rick. I think I can work from the microphone here. So thanks very much. As Rick has said, I'm very passionate about this programme. I love this event. I really like the fact that it's in Manchester. I moved 10 months ago to Glossop. So I'm a northern girl at heart, born and bred in Yorkshire. Spent a long time down south, but I'm now back in the north where my heart is. So it's a great pleasure to be here and be able to celebrate this in the north and particularly in Manchester. I also love this session. You have seen already with the breadth of things that we're offering you today, it's so exciting to hear about people's stories and journeys, and we're going to do more of that and introduce my panel shortly. Just my background, I'm also an engineer by background. Started off in welding technology, so that always got a lot of amusement. I loved the film Flashdance. I love to dance. I'm not a great welder. But what I've discovered over my career, my entrepreneurship has been embedded in the fact that I've just done lots of things in maybe a single organisation particularly, but I've had the opportunity to do a bit of experimentation myself, to try new things, to fail, and that means I've moved from welding to now being involved in things like life sciences, agri-food, chemistry and industrial bio. So I've got a very broad range of background. I have been fortunate to be interim CEO of the Knowledge Transfer Network for 4 months. I will say, Rick, I have just passed over that mantle to our new CEO, also a female, Dr. Alicia Grated, and that's been a great pleasure to hand those reins over to somebody else that is bringing enthusiasm and energy. And I think we both really understand that we do business and we innovate effectively through people, and it's the value of the people who do things. You know, business is all around people, no matter what we say we have to put around that. To me, I've been in business development, I've run teams, and that's the thing that's really important. The other thing I would say, having come from that very traditional sort of engineering background, I was used to being in rooms of 1 to 4, maybe 5 women in rooms for 200 of the other gender, the other main gender. When I first got involved in this, I was just blown away by the human nature, I think, that we bring to the topics that we're talking about in innovation. And innovation only, I think, succeeds because we are open, we're collaborative, and we bring more of ourselves. I think that is something that we should all be doing. It shouldn't be just a gender thing. I think if we can all do that and tell our stories in a more effective way, that means we'll have more successful businesses. So that's enough about me. Let me introduce you to our 4 panelists. You will see that we have real diversity in the panel, and I'm really looking forward to the stories that they will be able to tell us. So if I can invite to the floor Dr. Samantha Westgate. Samantha. Samantha is CEO of Perfectus Medical, but we'll do an introduction more in a moment. Could I ask you to sit down? Sorry. We have a plan. If I could introduce or invite up Rosemary Kay, CEO of Immersive Story Lab. And then Elizabeth Clark, CEO and co-founder of Dream Ability. And Fanzi Down, Commercial Director for the Confectionery Division of DPS. So that gives you an idea of, I think, the diversity, but let's learn a little bit more by doing an introduction.
Causing trouble already, I'm sorry, this is the hole in the back of the chair.
So maybe we should just call this session the Troublemakers.
The disruptors.
Yeah, disruptors. That's a great one. The
Mold breakers.
Yeah.
Mic breakers.
Yeah. So we're just going to run through. So if I can start with you, Samantha, but we'll work our way along this time. If you could just give us a bit of background to your company. I think particularly we're interested in maybe a highlight of something that you've been really pleased about, but also maybe a little bit about where you are in your journey and what's next for you.
Okay, so my company is called Perfectus Biomed. We're a service company, but our service is microbiology. So we work with a whole range of companies, probably about 200 clients in the antimicrobial sector, to support innovative companies themselves, develop new products, get them to market, and market their product once it's out there. So we have bacteriology labs, cell biology labs, virology labs, and we have a niche area of microbiology as well that we offer. So I set the company up very much around that niche area, and then over time it's grown to have the other services as well. The company's been going about 7 years. When I started, it was just myself. We've now got 26 people. We're still growing, hoping to be about 31 by the end of this year and rising to about 50 in the next couple of years. I think some key milestones for us, being a science company, we're all about accreditation. So when we started, we could kind of have an academic approach, but quite quickly to get the bigger clients and the bigger contracts, we needed to bring in sector-specific accreditation. So that's one thing I'm particularly proud of. We now have the 3 main accreditations that you'd expect from a science laboratory, which helps us win the bigger projects. And I think probably the biggest surprise on my journey is when I started, I was very much thinking about what the company would do. I didn't really think about, I knew I'd have to employ people. I didn't think about like the pride I might get from having a team. About 5 people in my team now are buying their first house, 2 or 3 are getting married this year, and it's really nice to kind of know that you're playing a part in that, and it's something I just didn't really consider on day one.
Okay, thanks very much. Rosemary.
Hi, I'm Rose Kay, and I run Immersive Story Lab. And I'll have to explain what we do. It's quite complex. I came out of film. I used to be a screenwriter and had a successful... I still am a screenwriter, actually. I still write stuff. I'm doing something with Jed Mercurian with the BFI, and I've got BAFTAs. And having had that very, very deep career in that world, I opened the door one day, a little door into the immersive world, and went, oh, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here that is very untapped. And so I set up Immersive Story Lab. And so what we do is we take cinematic footage, audio, and we take it outside cinemas. So we might, I'm just looking at this fantastic building here, we might projection map some material onto the front of that, and we get people to move around spaces. I don't know whether any of you know Pokemon Go, but we do, if you've got kids, there'll be people nodding, yes, and so you hold up your phone and there's a little figure. You can see the rest of the world in your phone, so the world is still there. It's not VR, which is where you're cut off. We don't do that. So everything we do is shareable, and it's about creating really fantastic story worlds. That's why we call Story Lab, because story is really important to me, and I think you can do fantastic things with story. So one of our sort of lines is we move people. We move people emotionally with stories. We get them to really care about the issues behind the story. I'm a very passionate, I stick the environment in everything. Even if people don't know it's in the story, it's in there, and they're being moved to think about the environment. They're being moved to think about all sorts of other important social things. But with immersive, we don't just move them emotionally, we also move them physically. And I think that can have a really important application. So we have done a project which used stories and story worlds and characters to move people along a coastal path. And it was all very exciting. It also made them think about what's in the sea and what is dying in the sea that shouldn't be dying. So that had a social application. It got people out, it got families sharing, enjoying being outside, using because we can't pry these digital things out of people's hands anymore. We can't go back to pre-digital, but we can get digital to use us to engage with our environment and care about our environment. And we've got quite a few projects on the slate. Our current project is to get people into town centres, to regenerate town centres, and to use story worlds and compelling stories to get people to come in. And it's going to be sort of like a nexus of community, of answering the needs of the business, and making something exciting for people as well. And in terms of our company, we're still very small, much smaller than you. And we probably will remain fairly small for quite a long time because we use the film business model. So the film business model is that you have a very, very small core who raise the finances and do the sort of the basic core stuff. And then when you have a project, it suddenly swelled. You know, it swelled to be almost like 1,000 people. When you see the film credits, all those people, hardly any of them are on the core of the film companies. But there's a huge team of freelancers. So that's when we swell and we use a lot of freelancers, and I am therefore open to talking to lots of people, and collaborating places like this are absolutely fantastic because I want to talk to all of you. I want to offer all of you the chance to partner, and I'd love to find out what you all do, and I really do believe that partnering is certainly the way forward for my business, but for generally. I love straddling borders and saying let's get these two things together that never were put together, and that's part of the innovation. You know, film and wandering around a city centre or wandering through a forest haven't in the last 20 years ago were never put together, but you put them together and you've got something innovative.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Hello everyone, I'm the one that drops the mic. I'm Elizabeth Clark, I've come from Dream Agility. We are based out in Ramsbottom, or Silicon Ramu as I like to call it, fastest growing tech hub in all of Europe, by head count. Like yourself, I started in engineering. I was a mechanical engineer to start with. I did electro-hydraulic arm and umbilical design, but it never sort of took off the way it was going to do, top sides, wellheads, that sort of thing. So after that, I did a spell. Before I did this, I was a flirting expert. So for 10 years, I was teaching people about breast etiquette, hand etiquette, kissing etiquette, mainly professional services sectors. And I decided that, you know, once I hit 40, do I really want to be going out talking about boobs forever? So I thought, do you know what? I'll go back into technology. What can I do? What am I good at? And I thought, well, I'm not a coder. I always wish I'd learned to code, but I never learned to code. I thought, well, I've got the ideas. I wanted to build a multi-sided platform that had everything from one set of business logic. So we set out to do that. I say we, I just signed a deal for £250,000 and I thought, yes, I'm on my way. I found out I was pregnant with my third child. I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, and now I have a 6-year-old. And we set up Dream Agility on my own, and got to the stage where my husband could join me, and we raised, and we were actually an AI company working with retail now. So we started off on the bidding side of things. You know, if you said to me 10 years ago when I was doing flirting, you're going to end up running an AI company, I would have gone, but it happens. If you said to me when I was an engineer, you're going to end up being a flirting expert, I wouldn't believe that either. But we specialise in retail. We have clients like Music Magpie and Chemist Warehouse, who's the third largest retailer in Australia. Our technology has done amazing things for them. They've had about 178% increase in their sales at a reduction in cost. So it's really clever, it's really sexy. We now have Visual AI, which is our new baby, which could look at an image and create all the data that goes with it. Poor Dr. Rob spends all his time looking at ladies' underwear. He's gay. He said, I'd like to go back to doing something a bit more, less underwear-y. So we have a very diverse team in Ramsbottom. We've attracted people from all over the world. I'd like a few more women. So if anyone is into visual AI or machine learning, then please come and see me after. And that's us, basically. Family business, so a bit different to you guys. You know, I've got my two eldest kids who are 25 and 23 now. 6-year-old did ask for a company car and a laptop for Christmas. So he's nearly there, he's in the right direction. But yeah, so we've got a different atmosphere to everyone else. We've got people from the Congo, people from Poland, people from France, people from Ramsbottom, obviously. So I think it's a different kind of technology business to a lot of other people maybe, but yeah, that's us.
Okay, and Fancy.
So my name is Fanta Dow, and DPS Design is a design and engineering company. So actually we're a family business as well. And after 10 years working for retailers, for all my sins, I had the opportunity to work for the family business. So my father-in-law actually started up the business 1995, so 24 years ago now. And but the business has stayed more like a lifestyle business for him for more than 20 years. So when I joined, I wanted to bring my background in retail. I was heavily, I spent loads of time when I was in China. I moved to this country, by the way, when I was 16. So I did loads of drawing and creative design, which I never really spent or had the opportunity to use that part of my brain. So it seems like a perfect opportunity after I had my first child. Working in the very inflexible retail world was absolutely a nightmare. Anyway, so cut very long story short, joined the business, and this was a time we had an opportunity to meet with the MPD team at M&S. So that was the first time they actually wanted to look at their supply chain. So being the design business in, 50% of the business is actually designing confectionery products and make chocolate molds. So that's our link to M&S. And we were, for 20 odd years, a second tier supplier to M&S. So people like M&S's suppliers, so people like Thornton's, would actually come to us for design ideas and sample molds to make your Easter bunnies and so on. So we ended up with a situation where M&S are actually asking their supply chain, let's say 3 suppliers that we work with directly, asking for 1 Christmas tree. And we know we have to give our customer 1, a Christmas tree 1, and a Christmas tree 2 to the second customer of ours. and the third customer ours have a Christmas tree 3. So they have to be different design because it comes from M&S point of view, it comes from 3 different suppliers. So that creates a very big dilemma for us because that's quite a lot of cost and times resource producing 3 sets of designs and molds. And we know there's only 1 contract if we ever get it. So on the confectionery molding side, we're actually one of the world's handful of people actually supply to the market. And also under that condition, we might not even get that Christmas tree because our competitors in Germany and Holland might actually end up getting that contract from supplier 4 for M&S. So my aim was trying to change this dynamic of wasting so much money and cost and time through this process. So my aim was to innovate in a way the business model works. So how can we basically bring ourselves from a second-tier supplier to a first-tier supplier to the retail world who we actually serve? So for the past 4 years, we've successfully transited from second-tier supplier to a first-tier supplier to the retailers like Hotel Chocolat, M&S, Thornton's, Flying Tiger, and people like that. And going back to the business itself, because we're a design and engineering company, we're basically CAD design things and making CNC modeled tooling in aluminium and other material, and then we make molding out of it. So 50% of the business is actually in aerospace and automotive industry, but using the same technology. And we, in the past couple of years, just transited again from a business model of supplying probably 80-90% of our customer, focusing on 1 customer. We now have a really healthy, balanced customer base and based around the world as well. So we are working with people like the supply chain of British Airways, Qatar Airlines, McLaren, and Jaguar Land Rover. So we are, in terms of balancing, if you asked me 10 years ago, my father-in-law was having 80% of the business in aerospace and 20% in confectionery. Now we're much healthier business as a whole, which is about 50-50 on both sides. So, and in the meantime, I have to say that I was so pleased that we managed to create. So when I first started, we had 26 people in the company, and now we have 38, and we managed to employ 12 women in addition to the 3 that we had when I first started. So just to prove women can have a role, and very important role, in manufacturing and engineering business as well.
The other thing that Fancy didn't mention is that also she was one of the successful award winners in the 2016 Women in Innovation. So you have some stories around that as well, I'm sure. So. Yes. So one thing I'm going to say is I'm going to ask some more questions, but I'm totally going to open this up to you to ask questions as well of this panel. I think what we've just heard is that diversity that I mentioned. So I'm sure there are things here that are resonating with you in the room. So please be ready. With that, I'll be coming out to you shortly. But what I wanted to do to start with is that we've talked about, we are talking about innovation, and actually the fact that we have to learn through failure and the challenges that we face and how we overcome that. So maybe if I could just ask you to think particularly about aspects of either something that, as I say, has been a failure, but you've really learned something from that, and how could you share that? Or is there a particular challenge that you'd like to address, and how you've overcome that? So maybe I can start with you, Fancy, this time, and come back. Yeah.
That's a quite big question, actually. I think for me, I know throughout my 4 years with Innovate UK and KTN, I've met so many women innovators. I think majority of them, I have to say, is science-based. So, I met some women curing cancer, new solutions to solar panel in space and so on. So for me, I think innovation is much more everyday. I don't want, there's only so many Dysons around on this planet. But for me, innovating a business model, we have cleaners innovated in her job in our company and saved us loads of money. And that is innovation. So I don't want people, start thinking, when I first started this journey, I didn't even actually want to apply back in 2000, I think August 2016, because I was like, all these people, manufacturing is going to be making really clever chips that go to computers and all kinds of stuff, and I'm just designing some chocolate, making some chocolate molds and so on and so forth. But actually, you know, when you think about the bigger picture, what you can create through that innovation process is massive. So going back to your question, is so linking to my main innovation, I guess, for the company, is we trying to expand to European market. So again, as a business of, at the time, 20 years, we always thought we're this little mold maker in Forest of Dean on the Welsh border, and there's big guys in Germany that they're, you know, factories and business like 70 years old and over 100 years old, and who are we to compete on the world stage? But then it actually turns out, once we got our confidence level up there, we're actually one of the only people in the world in our industry doing what we do. So no one else, none of our competitors actually design chocolate directly with the retailers. We do range design with people like Aldi, and they would literally, we're about to do a shopping trip with them end of October to look at what we're going to put on their shelf for Christmas next year. So it's a very unique position to be in, and that confidence really helps the general, for you to conquer any markets and any businesses, I think. But on our journey, we had, because Aldi's set up and they use a lot of European suppliers, 4 years ago we have never supplied to anywhere other than the UK. So they have said, Aldi have said, we have suppliers in Germany, we would like you to work with them. And the first thing I thought about is that these guys have one of our competitors literally 150 meters from their factory door. They've been buying the molds from them for 80 years. I don't even know where to start to trying to persuade them to change, to buy from this little Welsh countryside factory. So for me, one of the biggest challenges is to the culture change of selling a piece of new innovation to either a customer and the staff that we had at the time. You know, we had people working with us for 18 years. They graduated from school and been with my father-in-law for 20 years. How do we get these people within the company to be on the bus on this journey with us? That is so exciting. However, we need to change a lot of the structure within the company. We have paperwork now, which is like, whoa. So, you know, the way my father-in-law ran the business for 20 years is that everyone asked him a question about any projects that we had on. He knew everything about all the projects, and now he doesn't know hardly anything about any project, but I don't either, because we have a system, we have a paperwork, and we have a system and structure that support that. And, you know, I remember going back to the customer who lived next door to our operator next door to our competitors. We spent 4 years trying to persuade them they should use us on a project, and also save them in the first week of running the chocolate production. We'll save them the entirety of their mold investment. But we got there. Literally, we're signing the new first order with them, and we're producing for them for Aldi. So I think for me, the biggest challenge is a culture change, is change in general, albeit it's a technology or people, and the people who work with you.
Okay, thank you. I also just pick up from that tenacity because you have to keep at it, but thank you for that. So Elizabeth.
Challenges,
yeah.
Yes. There's always plenty. We've made it onto the Tech Nation. Tech Nation people back there. The applied AI scale up. There's a whole new language out there that I didn't realise even existed. We are deep AI, not just any old flim-flam AI. Apparently 40% of people who say they're using AI aren't. It's not material to their business. There's a lot of off-the-shelf stuff, so if you are doing your own thing, it's very special. And it's quite hard when the latest innovation that we've had on the visual AI side of things, it started sort of the beginning of this year. We were asked by Showroom Privé, who are the 4th largest retailer in France, if we would like to go to their retail accelerator out there. Retail's taken very seriously in France. So we went out and they were showing us around the building, and they had this huge room, like a big sports hall with flags hanging down from the ceiling and just loads of people. And it's not often you see that many people around. I said, what do all these people do? And he said, he says he takes a picture and they go, this is a black dress. And they give it to the next person, they go, this is a black dress in French and this one in German. I said, you're kidding me, you've got all these people just sat there doing that. I could take my visual AI, which at the time was looking at an image and checking whether the data in the feed matched it, an inventory feed matched it. I could rip it out. I thought, well, if it can check one thing against another, surely it can actually generate it from scratch. But I didn't know. And it is a sort of leap of faith. And I looked and I thought I could save them £1 million a year, because those people, it's seasonal work. They hire them for just a few months of the year. They've got all that space, all that hassle, hiring all those people. So I sort of had to sort of put my balls on the line and sort of say, well, yeah, I think we could do this. And then it's your reputation, everything's at stake. And you have to try and deliver something. And the whole time you've got the French sat there and everything. And then the French language is a nightmare because they have masculine and feminine. And so it's not just as straightforward as saying it's a pair of trousers. And so there was all sorts of challenges came with that. But we've kind of got through that. And off the back of that now, we have a whole new product. We discovered actually it's a completely new market. Nobody has got anything that will look at data, look at a picture and create the data to go into a PIM system. And PIM systems they're worth about 1.84 billion just on the apparel side of things. So actually we've got a whole new product. But when you're doing it, you've no idea if it's going to work or not. But you have to look confident. You have to look, oh yeah, we could do this. And I think that's, doing everything with a smile when you've got no idea if it's going to work or not is one of the biggest challenges, and not looking to the rest of the team. One of the best bits of advice I got from the weekend the other week was they had an entrepreneur who sold her business for 114 million, and she said, you're failing all the time until you win. I thought, God, she's absolutely right.
Great, thanks very much. Rose?
Well, I'll go back to the nub of the question is mistakes I've made. Yeah. And I think it's really important when you're trying to mentor and encourage people right at the beginning to say, fail as much as you can. And it's really important to women particularly. It's interesting, somebody asked me to do something last week and she said, you wouldn't have responded like that if you were a man. You want to get it perfect before you're prepared to go forward. But you should be prepared to make lots of mistakes. So I can tell you almost everything I have done in the company so far has failed. Almost every project we've done has not turned out as I expected it to be, and because everything we've done so far has had R&D funding, and I want to say thank you very much to Innovate UK, because we got some funding from them, and that we wouldn't have been able to do that if the money we had coming in to make that project had been commercial. If another business is paying you money to deliver something, you have to deliver it. But in this very innovative space, nobody's done the sort of things we were doing, and I'll give you an example. The app that we had to lead people through a story.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I think we're going to kick off now, so if you want to take your seats. Before we start the next session, I just want to begin by saying a big thank you to the people who facilitated those breakout sessions that you've all just been taking part in. So Ian, Charlotte and Angela, huge thank you. Round of applause. Okay, so now we're moving into the last section on the agenda. And first up, we have Jordan Darg, who's going to talk to us about the Regional Angel Investment Accelerator Programme, which is a programme that is supported by Innovate UK, and Jordan will tell you all about that. Jordan is a fundraising and growth expert for startup and high growth businesses across the North. And she's going to be talking about the Regional Angel Investment Accelerator Pilot Programme, and how that is being used to promote diversity and inclusion as well. So, Jordan, I invite you up to say your bit, and let me move the slide on for you. Okay.
Very much. Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon, everybody. So obviously, last couple of sessions of the day, so I hope everybody's still switched on, and hopefully I don't scramble everybody's brains too much. But as Emily mentioned, I'm here to talk about innovating female founders, and also the Regional Angel Accelerator Programme and how we actually transfer that into the diversity projects that we have across the North. So I want to start off with a little bit of research that's being carried out around diversity in the North. Diversity is a huge problem in the North, and it does hinder on business growth, regional growth, and also investment opportunities. The research itself has been carried out by the Innovation Super Network and Newcastle University, and it became very apparent that for every pound that's invested by private equity, less than 6 pence go to women, and only 14% are angel investors who are a female as well. So from our point of view, women do continue to be underrepresented in the entrepreneur and investment landscape. And what we want to do is to back and support female entrepreneurs take their business forward and grow their companies in the same way that men have done historically. So what are we doing to obviously remove the barriers to growth in the North East for females? So what we are wanting to do, and what we did through that research as well, is address gender bias. And there is an unconscious bias in growing sectors across the northeast of England. We tailored some programs and some workshops to initiate long-term change in gender bias, and obviously across targeted businesses as well. We also analysed the learning from the project and developed programs to scale up, obviously, the impact to which this research has on these businesses across the North East. So just to highlight some of the key findings is that basically diversity fatigue is an absolute myth. SMEs engaged in action learning and made concrete system changes in how they actually look at diversity and how they implement those changes. An unconscious bias, as I mentioned earlier, was rapidly understood. And SMEs have an advantage over larger businesses to actually make that change. Larger companies are willing to change and share and learn, about that collective diversity element in their business. And there's also an individual change as well in relation to unbiased work and systems for early stages of businesses and how that propels into the growth of the business as well. So what I wanted to do is just to give you a little bit of an understanding of, obviously, we are looking at this and it is absolutely important to us. But really, for me, the RIA project that has been brought forward by Innovate UK is now going to help us to actually eliminate some of those issues that we found in the research that was done. So I'm going to head into, obviously, innovating female founders and how the Regional Angel Investment Accelerator Programme can support. So the Regional Angel Accelerator Programme, we have £2 million in the North East. My project, which is under the Newcastle Angel Hub, essentially we have a £1 million pilot funding project. A collaboration of partners have come together to run the accelerator. So we have the BIC, which is well represented in Sunderland. This company looks at innovation as a whole, but they also have a huge focus on diversity and empowering women in the North East. We have North Invest. So I'm an investment director at North Invest, and we work collaboratively with both female entrepreneurs and with angel investors, females as well. We've got Innovation Super Network, which drive innovation and also support early stage businesses in terms of getting investment ready and also making those connections. Innovation Super Network is a network of networks. So if nobody has been on the Innovation Super Network site historically, I would say take a look, because there's a lot of really helpful information on there. And then we're also working collaboratively with Jenny Tooth and the UK Business Angels to drive this messaging across in terms of how we actually want to educate our angel investors and also help them with support to getting access to entrepreneurs as a whole, but a particular focus around diversity and how we make the right introductions across the board. So what I've done here is there's a bit of a graph in relation to where we are placed, okay? So our project, we will look at companies, early stage companies, all the way from Liverpool up to Manchester, up to Leeds, and all the way up to the northeast and into Newcastle. So our presence in terms of how we operate across this quite vast space, I think, the northeast and Tees Valley is, very represented by Innovation Super Network and the BIC. We've got an angel hub in Newcastle now as well, which is supporting early stage businesses and also engaging more with investors. We have North Invest, which is representing the Leeds Angel Hub and also is heavily networked across Manchester and Leeds. And we have a plan to obviously start engaging heavily within the Liverpool area as well and across Merseyside. Then our connections with the UK Business Angels basically forms and pulls that all together. And the UK Business Angels will be working collaboratively with the programme, with us, to support us in terms of finding further angels outside of the northern region because we want to support inward investment into the north. And also will be working with us on the educational elements, so e-learning programmes, workshops that really support not just all investors, but we have a clear focus on diversity and supporting females in our sector. So our ambition with this programme is to make between 10 and 15 direct investments into early stage tech-based companies. The project started in 2019 and is due to run till March 2021. When we talk about technology, it's not just about, technological platforms. And I've got a slide that comes next that's looking at certain sectors. If your business has a focus and it has anything to do with technology or it's functioned by technology, then I'd love to speak to you. The actual ambition for this project and for this fund is to increase survival rates as well of businesses. Many businesses don't get off the ground because they can't access the finance. And I think it's not new news to say that a lot of females don't actually get the business off the ground because they don't know where to go for funding. They are underrepresented. And for us, having this RIA fund, this pilot fund, we would absolutely be over the moon if we were to say 50% of those applications that we got through the project process were female. We also want to increase angel capacity in the north. So what this RIA project is about, it's about a 50-50 grant fund alongside regional angel investment. So it's a matched fund, okay? And through this, what we're trying to do is build our angel capacity across the north. We also, as I mentioned, and I've mentioned about 10 times now, this programme really is important for us to be a catalyst to support diversity right across the north. And it's also a catalyst for us to collaborate. All of the organisations who are working towards helping women innovate, helping to bring women together, RIA now is a big part of that, and we want to see that succeed. As I mentioned earlier, some of the sectors that we want to look at in the companies, the type of companies that we would work with. This is not an exhausted list by any chance, but it gives you the opportunity to see the types of technology that we want to implement the grant into. Okay, so we've got digital, subsea, offshore, advanced manufacturing, automotive, health and life sciences, fintech, technology for good, social impact driven businesses, cybersecurity, immersive tech, and immersive media. Okay. As I say, this is not an exhausted list. So if anybody has any questions in terms of is their business viable for this project, please do come and speak to me. So the Innovate UK Regional Angel Accelerator Programme, as I mentioned earlier, it was a £1 million fund that we have, okay? And really it's to encourage business angels in the region to bring investment and expertise to our early stage businesses. As I mentioned, we're operating across the northeast all the way down into the northwest. And the aim of the pilot funding programme is part of the UK research and innovation is to increase the pool of regional angel investors, but to also ensure that the early stage businesses, we start to see less of those businesses, going underrepresented across the regions. So the regional programme is used to identify suitable investments and will provide a grant, essentially, okay, with a longer term goal of actually being able to bring more investment into the company. So, for example, if you're developing a research and development led project, you're looking to raise finance, this grant will fund that project 50%, okay? So it'll be 50% from the grant and 50% from the angel, okay? Basically, the project maximum length is 12 months, okay? And we will invest anything between 40,000 up to 300,000. As I say, 150 maximum would be the grant and 150 from the angel, okay? That's what we're trying to aim to do. And as you can imagine, it's quite difficult to get grant funding into the company alongside the angel investment. So that's why we're working extremely hard to ensure that diversity is a major part of what we're trying to achieve, by obviously working with more female-led angels as well, who can bring that significant input. So what's the benefit to businesses like yours? So the benefit basically is if you're going for a grant fund, you have the best people assessing your business, okay? What that does is that gives investors that secure knowledge that there's not only the investors that's looked at your business and your project, you've had the Innovate UK panel look at the project, as well as people like myself and North Invest and people from Innovation Super Network validating your business and validating your project. What this also does is it gives us the ability to support a more diverse project for women founders and women innovators. And again, by having this grant fund, we want to invest in early stage businesses, okay? Those businesses that find it quite hard to get finance because they're quite risky. We want to be able to obviously, introduce you to investors as well. So through the Newcastle Angel Hub and through the Leeds Angel Hub and the North Invest Angel Network, we have the ability to be able to introduce those companies who are successful in receiving the grant with the angels. But not only that, if you are unable to access the grant for any reason, we still want to be able to point you in the right direction and give you some support around how you can access other types of finance and also become more investment ready as well. As I mentioned earlier, by having the RIA grant fund in your business, it will de-risk your innovation for the angel investor coming in. And it will also increase the capitalisation in your business, okay? And also, it will also help in terms of being able to access a wider network. By saying, I've got an Innovate UK grant in my business, people will start to look at you and think, actually, that's been validated by experts. Let's take a look and see if we can implement some angel investment in there as well. So what's the benefit to investors to invest alongside the Regional Angel Accelerator Fund? So basically, as I mentioned, it's all about validation. The investors will see that it's, a project that's been validated and that it has de-risked for them. It's an opportunity to invest earlier or to allow a proposed investment to go further, essentially. It's also a natural catalyst to working with Innovate UK as well, and actually being a part of what Innovate UK are about, and obviously the messaging and the learning and the education that Innovate UK give across the UK. It's also wider opportunities for investors to start and make syndicate-based investments. And I think this again comes back to diversity. Women in particular in investing want to build a syndicate and want to invest together and lean on each other's skills. So this project will allow women to come together and do that. And this is something that we really want to achieve over the next 2 years. And it's also an opportunity to build local capacity. As I mentioned, it's a regional programme, so it allows us to obviously build an investor base as well that is regionally focused and want to invest across the north. Through the partnership with the UK Business Angels, as part of the programme, investors who are coming through the programme will have the opportunity to gain free access to online learning courses, angel training workshops, networking events, co-working spaces throughout the hubs that are across the north, and also membership to the UK BEA. There's also obviously the personalised advice and guidance that's given by the UK BEA, and the UK BEA will also help us generate those syndicates as well, which essentially will have that knock-on effect to be able to invest in businesses like yours. So a little bit about the process. So I've put my email address on here. So if anybody wants to have a look or wants to discuss with me whether their company is going to be eligible for the RIA project, then please do get in touch. What we will do essentially will be a little bit of me finding out a little bit more about your company, ask you to share your business plan or your investment documentation and your financials. I will do a thorough check from my point of view to see if I think it's going to be valid for the RIA project. What I'll then ask you to do is complete an expression of interest. It's quite a short form, but it allows me to be able to capture the information that is set against what the Innovate UK criteria is about. We'll also run some basic eligibility checks so that we can find it out if you are going to be eligible for the Innovate UK grant funding. And we'll also then review your expression of interest as a collaborative team to see if we then put you forward to Innovate UK. If you are successful at getting to that point in the process, you'll then complete a wider Innovate UK application process, which is an online process. And generally, once it's hit that mark, you should find out about a month later if you've been successful. If you have been successful, what we will be doing as well in the background is actually working with our angel investors and our network of investors to help find that match funding for you. But what I would always say is that we encourage the entrepreneur to also look for their own investors, because we'll all come together and hopefully, form a nice co-investment deal. If you have been successful in receiving the Innovate UK grant, there'll be a monitoring officer which would be put onto your project. You'll also go through an element of project finance as well. So it's imperative that you have your numbers in absolute order, because again, project finance are there to help and support you, but it's a grant at the end of the day, and obviously costs have to be maintained throughout. So coming back to obviously the diversity element, what we plan to do over the course of the remaining 18 months basically is to schedule a number of events and a number of workshops and support women across both the entrepreneur sector but also in the investment world as well. So what we've got planned is, we've got a minimum of 3 Angel of the North events, forums and educational events over the next 18 months. We've got 6 All Point North Women founder and investor events as well across the North. We do hold angel drinks and dinners as well, because I think women like to obviously keep, things a little bit more informal. And what we plan to do is we do have pitch events at our Angel Hub meetings, and we want to make sure that we've got at least one female pitching at each of those events. As I mentioned earlier, diversity is absolute key to our values in terms of how we take this project forward. So what we're looking to do is engage with SMEs who are female focused. And we also want to make sure that we provide a platform for practical peer-to-peer learning, which will support both entrepreneurs and investors moving forward. We want to deploy action learn methods, which will help educate and obviously hopefully help secure the investment that's needed. And we also want to extend a program of activities, as I mentioned earlier, to address that unconscious bias, which I discussed earlier today. We also want to develop a network of diversity champions across the North. And again, we're having some very, very early stage conversations around how we do that. I think it's very difficult for entrepreneurs and investors to know where to go to gain access and information. And I think it's key over the next few months to really all come together to give people a go-to place, whether they're trying to raise capital or they're trying to invest their capital as well. So how to get involved a little bit. So if you are a business, as I mentioned earlier, please do drop me a line. I have got my email address on there. You can download the expression of interest as well straight away if you think your business is eligible. You can complete that expression of interest. If you are an investor in the room as well, by all means, again, do contact me on my email address that's showing. We will also inform you of any angel and active investor events that we have coming up. Do use our angel hubs as well. So we've got the Leeds official hub, and then we've got the Newcastle virtual hub at the moment, which will be launched in the coming months. Again, if you need any further information or would like to be involved in any of the training days that I've mentioned, by all means, do contact me. Okay, and that's everything. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that, Jordan. It's fantastic to see diversity being pushed so hard through that programme. I love the programme. I really don't like the title because it's such a mouthful. Every time you go to say Regional Angel Investment Accelerator Programme, it's very difficult to say and you get muddled up, but really fantastic to hear that, and look forward to seeing the outputs of that, and hope that you get that 50-50 balance that you're looking for. Now, before we go into the next session, I was chatting to somebody over lunch who is a researcher from Lancaster University who's doing some research with women entrepreneurs, and I'd just like to invite her to come up here just to tell you really quickly about the research she's doing and invite you to get involved if you're interested. So, Lara, will you just come and say just a really quick?
Very quickly. I'm Lara Peaches. I'm a lecturer at Lancaster University. I'm doing this research project from the SST on inclusive innovation. So I'm looking at stories of women in innovation and try to understand what the barriers are that you are facing and how we can inform policymakers in order to do something to create a more inclusive ecosystem of innovation. So if you're happy to share with me your stories, I'm around, so just approach me, and I would really love to hear your stories about your businesses. So I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. So come and find her afterwards if you're interested, and we can also share your details with everybody who's attended today, and they can follow up with you that way as well. Okay, right. So now on to So this is now the final session of the day, the one that we've all been waiting for. And I'm really delighted to welcome Jenny Tooth here, who is the Chief Executive of the UK Business Angels Association that Jordan is working with on the programme that you've just heard about. Jenny is a huge advocate and a friend of Innovate UK and has been an ambassador for our Women in Innovation work right since the very beginning. So thank you for all your support on that. So UK Business Angels Association is a trade body for angel and early stage investing, representing over 18,000 investors around the UK. Jenny has a huge amount of experience, over 20 years of facilitating SMEs access to investment, both in the UK and internationally. So Jenny is going to have a conversation with Amanda. Amanda is an angel investor who recently actually won an award at the UK Business Angels Association Awards, which was about the best women-led investment. So really delighted to have you both here. Please welcome you up onto stage. And this is all about investment matters.
I think we're sitting in the right seats. Yes, that's right. Don't go to sleep. This will be good. Okay, so you've got two glammy women, both involved in angel investing. We don't look like men, do we? So the first thing to tell you is that women are very, very important to women entrepreneurs as investors. And my big campaign is to encourage more women like Amanda to back wonderful women entrepreneurs like yourselves, because our research has shown that women like myself and like Amanda, we tend to want to back women entrepreneurs. We see the opportunities, we know how we can help, and so we naturally have them as part of our portfolio. But we also know that it's very difficult for you to find women like ourselves because there's not enough of us. And Jordan touched on this as well. And our research has shown there's not half enough women in this country who, many women, have lots of experience and quite a bit of spare financial capacity and are still not recognizing the opportunity to invest. And they're not meeting enough wonderful women like yourselves who can offer those opportunities for them to invest. So this is the first thing for you to bear in mind. So there aren't enough of us to find. The second thing is, when you do find us, we're very, very interested in backing you. So that's a very good start. The most important thing, though, is to understand what investors are looking for. It's really important to understand how to approach us, how to attract us. We see an awful lot of deals. So one of the things we're going to talk about in this is really what does an investor like Amanda look for, and what tips she can give you along the way to really help you, hone your business proposition and maximize your opportunities. But first of all, you need to know about our investors. So Amanda, I'm going to ask you to say a little bit about your background, what you've been doing, the kind of experience you bring, and then how did you get into angel investing?
So I'm Amanda, and I started angel investing over 5 years ago. My background is that I've spent 20 years in marketing and in sales, so that's my area of expertise, and I've worked in big brands and small brands and startups that have gone bust. So I've done a little bit of everything. I've worked for British Airways, for American Express, for Fat Face, for all sorts of mostly consumer brands. So that's what I bring, and I think there's a difference between the generics that all investors will look for, and then each angel investor will have their own areas that they'll focus on, so I can dive through some of those. And I started angel investing. I first started investing through Kickstarter, so I've always been interested in new ideas and supporting small businesses. So I started through Kickstarter with some weird and wonderful products and friends who had creative projects. And then when crowdfunding platforms came to the market about 5 years ago, I dabbled there a bit. So I invested in a few of those through Crowdcube and others. And then I started to get serious and I thought, well, actually, how do I directly invest in businesses? Because I wanted to advise the founders directly rather than just through a kind of crowdfunding way. And that's how I met angel syndicates. So these are angel networks. And for angels like me, some of them run training. So they teach us about the tax benefits called SCIS and EIS. They teach us about something called due diligence and how to do that. They teach us how to evaluate companies, about valuations. So I used one called Angel's Den, and they have free programs for angels to kind of bring them into the market so that they feel confident investing directly. And so I invested with them, and I also invested through Startup Funding Club, and they are another angel network. So they run pitching events, so I get to meet a lot of founders very quickly through speed pitching events or through pitching like this to a group and then answering Q&A. So they give me deal flow, which is super important because you have to recognize that angel investors will only invest in 1% to 3% of the companies that come across their path, and that's the same for venture capital, so VCs as well. So you have to do something to stand out, yes. But we see a lot of volume.
So, again, the beauty of syndicates is that they have a name, because the hardest thing for you is to find Amanda. You won't find Amanda in the telephone book, you won't find her online. She doesn't put her head above the parapet, okay? Because as individual investors, it's extremely hard, for us to do that. I mean, we would be either inundated or, trolled or whatever happens online. So the most important thing for you to bear in mind to find angel investors is to look for angel groups, and Jordan's already mentioned North Invest here. We've also got GC Angels here in Manchester if you're in this area, but also finding angel groups. And on UKBA, on our website, you look on our directory and we have 72 angel groups, 2 of whom Amanda's mentioned. One is Angel's Den, and the other one is Startup Funding Club. You'll find North Invest, you'll find GC Angels. So you need to look out for syndicates because angels invest collectively. That's the very important thing. So Amanda, the other thing you touched on was about the kind of experience you bring, because I think the most important thing as you moved away from just investing online, it was the opportunity for you to not just put that money into an entrepreneur, but to bring that added value. So can you tell us a little bit about, why would you take angel money rather than crowdfunding money?
So when you're dealing with angels, a lot of them bring areas of expertise, and a lot of them want to be very active in the investment. So you need to figure out, when you go to angels, what level of input you'd want from them. So some will give just funding and take a back seat, and others will potentially take directorships. As part of my investments, I'm on the board of one of my companies, so I go to board meetings, but on others, I don't. So a key consideration for an angel and for you is who's the lead investor, because the lead investor is normally responsible for the due diligence, and then the other angels will follow. And I'm not the lead investor in my investments, so you need to find who that's going to be first generally, because they'll set your valuation, and then there's the other angels or the syndicates will probably flow around. And some of the syndicates do the due diligence and are the lead investor, and some of them don't. So there's different models even in what the syndicates and the services that they offer. Some of them are just networking, and some of them have funds now. So Startup Funding Club has a fund, so it has a 5 million fund, and it invests in companies, and it co-invests with its angel network, and they run pitching, and some of them are just networks. So Angels Den is just a network; they don't invest their own money. So those are some of the things to consider.
And I think that is something to bear in mind, that often when you approach an angel group, there's often a sidecar fund as well that can co-invest, and that's often a way of mobilising additional money. And Jordan, of course, mentioned the whole opportunity about grant money alongside angel money. So I'm going to move on to that, Amanda, because obviously one of the interesting things is that many of these businesses may ultimately be looking at Innovate UK grants. And I know that you recently invested, and indeed we talked about Amanda as the award winner, because the company that you invested in was a female-founded business, and they'd accessed an Innovate UK grant. And what attracted you towards them, and why was the presence of an Innovate UK grant interesting to you as an investor?
So when I first invested, they didn't have that actually. So they originally they were.
Shall we tell you a little bit about them?
Yes. The company is called Big Couch, and they are in. They started one business, which is one I invested in along with Startup Funding Club, which is crew funding. So this is a model where the people who work on a film, they take a less of a day rate, but they get profit share later down the line, which helps independent films get produced because it lowers their upfront costs. So that's a model, but it had been used by big films, but nothing had been standardized. There wasn't a product on the market. So they started with that in the UK, and I invested in that. And then, this is a story of investing I invested in two females. One was a film producer, she knew the market very well, and one was the commercial. And so they came as this duo. And then over 18 months, they decided, or they started working, in this industry, and they recognized a bigger market, a bigger opportunity. And that was in film financing and following the money, because it was very antiquated, there's a duopoly. So then they pivoted, but they pivoted into a blockchain application. Now, blockchain developers are few and far between, and they're very expensive. So this is when they went to Innovate UK, and they managed to, it's £250,000 worth of grant money, and they work with a university. So this is a way, and for me, it just shows that I picked the right ladies, because now they've opened up a much bigger opportunity. Obviously, if I'm looking at companies, having a grant already in place, massively reduces my risk, because somebody else has validated. You come with money that's non-equity money, so you're not diluting me. So it's a big kind of tick. In fact, anybody who is, recommending you that their area of expertise is, validating ideas, that's, a trusted party, decreases the risk for angel investors. And in that instance, I have no background in film. So I took a risk because I wasn't an expert in that area. But I mean, in other of my investments, I am more of an expert. So it's interesting, especially if grants or other people are doing the due diligence and who are experts in that field, I'm listening to them as an angel and saying, is this a viable business? And even I think I was talking to Innovate UK, they have sector experts who validate your grant. It's not them. They're not the expert in blockchain or whatever it is. They'll go and ask 5 experts whether they think your idea is sound and has a business. So
that's tremendously attractive to you to know that's been validated in that way. So that's kind of one way of attracting you. What else do you look for as an angel when you're looking? Shall I back this business rather than that business?
So I think there's 2 separate criteria. There's the generic criteria that all angel investors will look for, and these are, which I think is helpful to, they're looking at, is this your full-time job? What is your motivation? They don't want to back a lifestyle business. You need to show your motivation that you're going to be a high-growth business. They're looking at traction in the last 12 months in particular. How far have you gone under your own steam? With friends and family.
And can I just stop you there? Because I think those are 2 important things. One is Amanda's saying how far you're conveying the essence of yourself to Amanda. And the second thing is also making it clear what you've achieved.
Absolutely.
Because one of the biggest things you have to remember as women is that the men will bullshit all over the place about this. So you've got to really, really make it clear what you've achieved. And that's one of the big areas that I think is so important for you to bear in mind. And conveying the essence of yourself. Yeah. What is it that makes you special, and what you are doing to really commit yourselves to this business. Yeah. That's really, really big.
Absolutely, confidence. I mean, I've watched a lot of pitches, and there is a tendency for males to be like uber confident, and the nice hockey stick effect. And when you start asking well, that's great, in year 3, what exactly are you doing to, quadruple your sales? And, they get a bit dicey on the details. Whereas the typical female response is not quite the hockey stick, a bit more humdrum. And, and when you really get down to details, they know them. This is the difference in the sexes when they come to pitching. And I've seen a lot of pitches, so that is a truism of the space. So what else? I'm looking at, payback. How quickly are you saying that I get my money back? Are you an expert? So there's a term called your unfair advantage. Mm-hmm. So if you're already in that industry or already know something about it, and the perfect kind of thing is you've gone, there's a real need here. And then they go, why? Because I've experienced this. It gives you huge credibility. A realistic valuation. So this, I've seen very, very good companies and ideas that have never got funding because they were unrealistic about their valuation. And that's why it's good to go to syndicates and to people because they have, so many valuations, they'll understand, how to give you how to advise you on a sensible valuation. And remember that valuations and payback is different by industry. So if you're high tech, you're going to have a higher valuation than if you're going to be producing FMCG, probably. B2B tends to be slightly higher than B2C. So there's these, you're not all being evaluated equally in terms of criteria of angels.
And when you're doing that, are you tending to look around at sort of comparables in the market, what else has been going on in the market, to give you that? I mean, this is something to think about with your valuation.
Multiples.
What is it that Amanda looks at to find those baselines?
So yes, I look at the industry data, and for me, there's lots of valuations, lots of information in the marketplace that I can just look and go, okay, what's the valuation of tech or biotech? And this is the valuation, this is the type of investment, and this is how long it takes to kind of get my money back. So that's where I look
so you would expect them to have done some of that research
absolutely.
When approaching and saying, this is why I think my business is worth
X,
because I looked at the market, I've looked at what's happening in the market, what other investments are being made in companies like mine, what companies like that are exiting for.
Absolutely. So all that evidence-based, because I invest in early stage companies, so I invest through SEIS. So I get tax breaks for doing that. But often they have a minimal viable product. You're not yet revenue generating. You're certainly not profit generating.
Does that worry you, by the way, not yet being revenue generating?
No. So why take funding? One of there's two presenters today, they came from two extremes. One was, I think both called Samantha, but one was like, no, I didn't need the investment to start. I can just be revenue generating. The other one was like, I needed the investment to have a business. And so, the second, you have to sell the idea. You don't yet have the business. You don't have the funds to, anything in deep tech, you won't be able to do it. You need the capital investment in order to get the product built. So then you're selling, then what are my criteria going to be different? Because, I know the investment is $250,000 or whatever it is to get the thing off the ground. So then I'm looking at your expertise. I'm looking at who else that I trust has told me that this is a good, a good idea and is a viable, business idea.
And how far, you invest in two women, how far are you investing in teams? How is one person enough? Is it teams? What's your main sort of approach to that as an investor?
So one has been two, the other one is one. One person can't be good at everything. So if it's one, they have to recognize that they have strengths and weaknesses and be able to, prop up the areas of weakness and know that they need to hire potential, people who are good at marketing or whatever, finance, whatever that may be. I know that some venture capital firms will not invest anything that's more than three people because it's too high risk. And that's three people who are complementary, that don't have the same expertise, that have very distinct roles, because what if one of them wants to walk out, then where's my investment gone? So it's less of an issue for me, but I know as you get into more serious money that there's probably a law of three. Or definitely two.
Yes, and then you would want to build that into your investment proposition if you don't have that team already.
Yes.
What about scale? How far is scale important? Capacity to scale. How far is that important to you?
Because I'm investing early stage, I need to see that there's a market, and that there can be a product that can earn revenue in some kind of time frame that isn't like 3-5 years. The ability to scale, there's often another round of funding. So where I'm normally investing is at the kind of product, the validation stage, building the team, first few customers, but often there's a view that within 18 months to 2 years, there'll be another round of investment, which is a scaling round. So they are different. So great if you've got it to that stage and all you need to do is scale.
Yes.
But recognize that there are people who invest that do they're more about the product and the market fit and getting yourself ready for that. But that's normally SEIS, and then EIS investment can often be used for kind of scaling in the next round.
And what about competition? How far do people really need to understand their competition? Is that important to you to know how they stand against the competition?
Absolutely. So every investor will ask you, what's your solution? And how is it better than the competition?
And so standing out in some way, how they can kind of keep ahead.
Absolutely. So that uniqueness could be branding. It doesn't have to be just IP.
Yes.
It could be tech. It can be a range of things. What is that makes me different? If you're very easy to copy, that's more of a challenge.
But patterns and things like that are not necessarily the key.
No, not necessarily. I'm looking at investment in biotech, and it's more important that they do that. But in consumer, some of the consumer, it's more about the brand building, and actually the IP is very, very expensive, so they do it slightly later.
And because we're kind of nearing the end a bit, as Siobhan has just given me a little hint, I thought if just you've listened today, you've been here, Amanda's been here all day listening to you and hearing the different comments and things from the floor. What kind of tips would you feel as an investor you'd like to kind of give to the audience? Things you think they should have some takeaways today?
I think, are you ready for funding is probably the first question. Do you need funding? Is it a model that you want to go down? What do you want from those investors? Where are you, potentially what areas filling your weaknesses gaps, or just a mentor from your sector? And then, I'd consider other, I've dealt with companies where they've gone through crowdfunding plus angel, because the crowdfunding has given them, PR and awareness.
Yes.
And the angels have given them the support network, and the kind of the board presence and the support and the advice. So there's not one size fits all. It's, I think, understanding what you really want, and what you think you need in the next kind of, well, remember that I'm investing probably for 7 years. So I don't expect angel investors don't expect a quick turnaround. So, we're in it for the long haul. We'd rather have a viable, takes us slightly longer than it goes bust kind of model. But, when I go on board with a company, I'm there, in the background, being part of board meetings, having, being updated, asking and supporting, introducing people, whatever, I'm kind of is required of me. So think very carefully about, kind of what you want.
And it's a long-term relationship, as Amanda said. It can be 7 or 8 years, and that's if you're lucky, isn't it, Amanda? So one of the things is that you have to like each other. You have to feel you can get on.
Absolutely. So there's, talk about the generic of angel investments, and then for me, I didn't set out to invest only in primarily in female co-founders, but that's what happened, because when I asked those probing questions, I got honest answers rather than some, fluff. And, I'm looking at things, are they self-aware, where they know where their strengths and weaknesses is? And the traits really are, sheer grit, because there will be really tough times, and I'm looking at, have they been through that? Do I think that they will get through that? And also, adaptability, because you will need to adapt your business. I've not seen one business where they go in and then 3 years later they're doing the same thing. It just doesn't happen. Like, as you go to market, you'll get feedback, and then you'll adapt your product or who your target audience is, or get funding and then go through a growth spurt. So you're in it for the journey, and you have to like each other and want to, have those conversations. But for the angels, I'm learning new industries. I didn't know anything about blockchain before I invested it, and that's exciting for me. So I get a lot out of it. Angels do get a lot out of it, and they give as much time as they can.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda. I'm sure that you probably learned quite a bit today. I certainly think that having these kind of conversations is really, really important for women like yourselves, because you can't read all this in a book. Amanda hasn't written her book yet. But I think most importantly, just getting those insights is so important. Then you now know how to approach an angel, because you know what they look for, and they're all different. So they're, obviously getting to know each other is part of that. But it's one thing also to bear in mind that this is not frightening. You should definitely look at angel investing as part of your journey, and inform yourselves as much as anything. But I think the most important thing is, I know some of you may have perhaps knocked at the door of a bank or tried for things and people have said no to you. But the most important thing about angel investing is there's lots of us around, and you have to find the right ones for you. And so you have to kiss a lot of frogs, as we say. And so it's, so really kind of you learn each time you meet different angels. So I hope that's really been useful to you today. I'm sure that there'll be lots more opportunity to feed in more information through our work with Innovate UK. And obviously you heard today about Raya and some of the ways you can also engage with both Innovate UK grants and the angel community here in the North. So I'd like to thank Amanda so much for giving your time today. You were fantastic. Thank you so much. you all for listening. Hope to see you soon.